And we'd like to invite Congressman Burgess Owens and Bill Nixon to come up to introduce Burgess.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, thank you. That was excellent, excellent. Exactly what we're looking for here. Rhett, I grew up as the son of an attorney, and I remember as a young man asking my dad why he didn't advertise like everybody else. And he says, because it violates legal professional ethics. Well, they got over it. If you'll indulge me just a personal story for a minute here. When I was 12 years old in 1970, football was my life. That's all I really cared about. I should have focused more on academia, but I loved football. And I wanted to play desperately, but I had a father who really knew very little about it. And one day he came home and he said, Bill, I found somebody who's going to help you develop what you need to play football. And his name was Jerry Bond. He was a sharecropper son from Tennessee who had come out to Weber State University and distinguished himself in track and as a strong side safety for the Wildcats. And Jerry came to the house. They'd met actually on a flight to Los Angeles. And Jerry came to the house and became eventually my older brother and my mentor. And out of Weber, Jerry was taken by the New York Jets. And I was so proud of him. I mean, even at that age here in Salt Lake, to have somebody I deeply cared about and loved and go to the New York Jets, play professional football. For a young boy, that just didn't happen. Jerry was there for about 3 months and came home one night. I remember he came to the house. It was late. We stayed up eventually talking till about 3 a.m. And I just couldn't understand. I mean, he was, as many of us understand with our heroes. And he said, Bill, there was no chance for me at the New York Jets. He said, I had to compete against a first-round draft pick out of the University of Florida called Burgess Owens. Well, at that moment, my friends, I couldn't even stand to think about the name Burgess Owens. In fact, I grew up, frankly, thinking someday I'm going to get even with Burgess Owens. Jerry did go on to play for the LA Rams, and he did fine. But this kid out of Florida went on to an MVP in the 1980 Super Bowl with the Oakland Raiders after 9 incredible seasons with the New York Jets. Well, my heart softened one day when I saw Burgess on Fox News as a leader of a nonprofit organization. He'd just written a book called Why I Stand, back when the controversy broke in the NFL about the sense of the flag and our patriotic dedication. And I picked up the book on a flight that I had to take from Washington, D.C. to Dubai, and I read it, the entire book, all the way to Dubai. And all of a sudden, I thought I hadn't given Burgess Owens a real fair chance. And so when I got to Dubai, I called a friend here in Utah who was working for Governor Herbert, and I said, do you know Burgess Owens? When he was on Fox News, the Salt Lake skyline was behind him. And he says, yeah, Burgess is a member of the community out here. And I thought, so Burgess Owens, who beat Jerry, is now in Salt Lake. And I said, I'd like to meet him when I get back. I just read his book. So he lined up a lunch with Burgess, and immediately that heart completely melted. And I found a man who I thought was outstanding on so many levels. And we were able to do some work with him and a very important nonprofit he had. And as we worked together, it dawned on me that Burgess had this incredible future, and that he had a voice that, frankly, needed to be heard. But as all this was coming together and these thoughts were gelling, I called my friend Jerry Bond, who also lives in Salt Lake. I said, Jerry, do you know Burgess lives here in Salt Lake? And he said, I'd love to see Burgess. So we hosted a lunch and had Jerry and Burgess come together to talk after 40 years of that first season in the NFL. And what surprised me is Jerry had liked him all along. And I learned a great lesson about harboring feelings about people. I should have put these away years ago, Burgess. But we are delighted to have Congressman Owens with us here today. He was elected in 2000 to serve in the 4th District for the state of Utah. He was immediately put on the Judiciary Committee and the Labor and Education Committee of the House of Representatives, and now is our representative on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. The voice he has in Washington, D.C. is one of the most powerful, fresh, and I have to say, it's iconoclastic. I mean, Burgess is always willing to tell the truth, no matter it comes to social policy, economic policy, protecting families, doing the things that are important to us here in Utah. And I can't say that we could have anybody else better to represent us when it comes to keeping our highways open. And with that, Burgess, here you go.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, brother.
Okay. Boy, how you guys doing? I had a prepared speech. I'm just going to kind of talk from my heart, though, okay? And first of all, I want to say thank you. And I always start my talks in Utah with this. It's always, by the way, it's always good to see my legislative friends here. I'm going to talk about the collaboration power that we have here in a little bit. But let me just start off by saying Utah is the fastest growing state in the union for a reason. It's what you guys have put together as a culture here that's just so attractive. I grew up in the Deep South, Tallahassee, Florida. And I grew up in a community very similar to the feelings that I found here. It was a community that was based on faith, family, free market education, a community based on patriotism. We were taught as young people, young men particularly, that we learned to love God, country, family, respect women and authority. And it was just such a great place to grow up, segregated community. But boy, were we all about proving ourselves to be great Americans. And we did that in those days through something called meritocracy. You know, it was, by the way, this is through all the cultures in our country. We're not assimilating at the time, but what we did know is we wanted to make sure that everyone respected us as being great Americans. And so we really went at it in a very, very hard way. And I think my community during those days proved themselves. For those who don't know, you take those concepts, you take that commitment to make sure our kids are growing up in a really good, positive way, that they grow up to want to hold on to a good name for their family and a good name for their community. You have the results we had back in the mid 1900s. It was a black community that led our country to growth of the middle class. This is 40s, 50s, and 60s. Men matriculated from college, men committed to marriage, percentage of entrepreneurs. And this is the community I grew up in. So to come to Utah and to find that same type of culture was so refreshing. It was by accident. When I say accident, not that I had prepared for years and years to be a Utahn. I just made a very simple decision when my 6 kids were leaving high school. I said, guys, listen, you can look at any college across the country as long as you start the first year off in Utah. Now, I figured there's a culture out here, first year away from home, that may be a good start for my kids. I went to the University of Miami, party school. I did not want them to experience that coming out of high school. So Utah was it. I had no idea years later that they were going to find their spouses, start their families, and decide to stay here. And so what's the day I have to do? We followed, of course. And 10 years ago, I became a Utahn. So I tell all my friends, by the way, that visit here often, I said, listen, guys, just know this and give you a heads up. If you come to Utah too often, stay too long, you will become a Utahn. That's the way it works. So I always give that warning. But to say the least, I'm so excited about what you have really laid, the legacy you have put to place. And you've taken things from your parents, your grandparents, and passed it on. And I just want to be part of that process and make sure we hold on to it. It's such a precious culture to have. I know how easy it is to lose it, because my community doesn't have it anymore like we did in those days. So we have to make sure that we stay at the tip of the spear of holding on to what's so precious here. That being said, I'm one of those guys that never thought I'd be a politician. Matter of fact, my statement for years, matter of fact, when I first met Bill, I would never, ever be a politician. It's the second ever that gets you in trouble. So if you ever say that, just don't add that extra ever, okay? But I realized working with at-risk kids, which has actually been my passion for decades, is that we don't change things in D.C. We don't get our kids learning how to read, write, think, be proud of our country. We're going to lose our country, and that's what's been happening. So I'm proud to be a Utahn. I'm proud of what the legacy that you guys have worked so hard to pass on, and we have to hold on to it, realizing that we're the fastest growing state in the union. So that being said, the two committees that I've been part of kind of portray my commitment and my legacy to not only our country, but Utah. Education and workforce, that was the one thing I knew. The only really committee I really knew anything about, but I knew I wanted to be part of that because, again, education. My dad was a educator at Florida A&M for 40 years. I lived in the shadows of Florida A&M. I would spend my summers spending time in his laboratory. He was an agronomist, and so I knew how important that was. I'm really finding out also how powerful workforce is, because we have to make sure no matter what industry we're part of, we're here and that is a big, big problem we're having. So that workforce is a big part of what we're trying to get done. The other one, and I worked for about a year and a half. Once being there, as Bill mentioned, I was part of the judiciary, which is a lot of fun. It's always always a lot of exposure because of things that's going on there. But I wanted to do something that I could really have an impact on my state. And there's no better place than to be transportation infrastructure. We are, and this is the spiel I gave the committee as I worked for a year and a half to get on it. There's no state in the union that is growing as fast as Utah. This is collaborative as Utah, that has the entrepreneurial spirit, innovation that Utah has. And we need to actually understand how to smartly grow our state further south. We need to have great broadband. We need to have an infrastructure where people can get back and forth to work. Matter of fact, most important thing is no matter where we are in the state, we need to have a place where business can grow and thrive, because that's what builds our great culture here, and where kids will be educated no matter what their zip code is. It's a civil rights that every child should have the opportunity to have the best education as possible. We lose that, and we lose everything. Ignorant and free can never be, was something Thomas Jefferson said years ago, and you can really see it in a big way right now. So that being said, transportation infrastructure, I look at things like the inland port. I look at our remarkable Salt Lake City airport. I look at stakeholders like yourself that sit and think about how can we better represent our industry, how can we better make sure Utah's working the right way. There's no state that can be a better model than we are. I had a chance to spend some time in Israel a couple years ago, and Israel's known as the starter nation. And, well, I look at Utah as a starter state. We're the state that really can lead our country in so many different ways. So I wanted to there's a couple things that as I wrote down a couple things we're doing legislative-wise. I thought what we'll do is just kind of share just a few thoughts with you, like I'm doing right now, and then maybe just open up for a couple questions. Unfortunately, I do have a hard stop. We have another meeting I have to go to back south. But I thought I'd just give you a little bit of updates what we've been doing legislative-wise. And I didn't see if you guys have any questions about what we're doing in that regard. It's been kind of nice to, again, to sit at the table, to talk about the collaborative effort we have here. And by the way, that's one of the more powerful things we have. I've never seen a state that collaborates the way we do. Federal, state, local, private, nonprofit. We have the same end game. And when you do that, it truly shows the power of the concept, we the people. When we can be in harmony at what the end game is, what that goal is, then we might have differences along the way, might have different things we want to get out of everything we do, because we all have our self-interest. But when we have that we the people concept of harmony, the things we can accomplish is remarkable. And I see that with my state legislative friends. We have our lanes. We have to make sure we stay in, and I truly believe that. I think the power should be coming from the local area, but in those areas that we have some nexus, we can support and help pull back regulations. And by the way, we're finally in a position where we're going to start getting some help from D.C. I mean, I look at the stuff you have to go through, and being an entrepreneur, I tell you, it's frustrating. when you have people who have no clue about how the industry works, how to build a business, how to take risk, that are sitting there making decisions on everything we do and outcome. We now have the last two Congresses, we have people that are there for the right reasons. We're getting better. I think the next 2024 is going to even add on to that. Folks that, like myself, never thought I'd be a politician, folks that for a farmer, a pharmacist, I mean, you go across the board, folks that are there for the right reasons, that because they love our country. And so thank goodness we're going to start having conversations about how we can make sure that we stop this industry, that the predators of industry, those who just look at ways of sucking the blood, the lifeblood, the income, the innovation out of business ownership. And they've been getting away from this way too long. And I think we now finally, and maybe it's because of COVID, COVID's kind of pulled back the curtains in a lot of ways. We didn't know before COVID how close we were to losing our freedoms until we wake up one day and say, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, I can't open my business. I can't go to church. I can't put my kids in school. And when they're in school, they call this crazy mess. We had no idea. And now we know we can now do something about it. So I just want to give you a positive note that we're on the right track. I know it looks crazy out there right now. But I believe that that we have as a culture, we live in this little freedom bubble. We spend all our times focused on our dreams, our businesses, building memories of our kids, taking our vacation, retirement one day. It's called a freedom bubble, which is what American with freedom is all about. The problem is we don't recognize during that time this evil on our doorstep. And now the COVID, we realize this evil on our doorstep. And so we're finally at a point where people say, you know what? Just like it was in Pearl Harbor and 9/11, it's time for me to wake up and be involved, be engaged, and step on the field and make sure I play my part. So that's what I see happening right now. We have so many good people that have been doing their thing, succeeding in their way, sitting on the sidelines, sitting in the stands, and saying, okay, I have to, whatever I have to do, take my time now, be engaged. So thank you guys for being engaged in the ways you are right now, politically. And by the way, that might just be as simple as being real nice to someone who doesn't quite agree with you. Something real simple, because each one of us have a place that we can impact people. It might be funding, it might be phone calls, it might just be just educating ourselves. Whatever it is, find out what that is, and let's put it on the field, because now's our time to truly get our country back. And as we get our country back, your industry will thrive, it will grow, because we allow the entrepreneurial spirit, the innovation, the idea we can make a profit, turn it back in to make sure our business is built better, and build this remarkable middle class. That's what you do best. Business owners, and this is the power of a great country that believes in free market. What makes our country the greatest country in the history of mankind is a robust middle class. And that middle class is powered by business owners, by risk takers. Those who say, you know what, I'm going to give back to my community. I'm going to have a good name so my kids can grow up and be proud of who I am. I'm going to make sure that I vote for people that let us grow. That's what that middle class is. Empathy, it's faith, it's vision, and it's powered by business owners. So I want to thank you guys for continuing to take the risk you do. Just know you have friends in D.C. We just have to add on to that number, okay? We'll do that. Okay, let me just take a couple minutes and take a couple questions, okay? By the way, I have a little Raider story at the very end. Is that okay? All right.
Well, thank you very much, but you can't get away from talking to the states. And I'm with Whiteout, of course. And on the maintenance side, I hope on the transportation in the next bill that comes up, which is going to be in 4 years, you can work on it and try to put some federal dollars towards maintenance. Maybe in the snow and ice community or some limited amount, not just like it is on the construction side where we do have 90/80, but if you could give us any federal funding on the maintenance side, that would sure be a help in the future. Thank you.
And I'll say this, we've now been in power for seven months. I've been on the transportation infrastructure for 7 months. My ask for you is to help educate my team. You know, we look at ourselves, this new group the last 2 years, I think of ourselves as innovative legislators. We're not there to mandate, to push down our wisdom. We're there to find out what's going on, and the way we only do that is from hearing from the innovators. So I would love to understand more of that policy you're talking about. This is a new committee that I'm so excited about being part of because I know the impact. But at the same time, I'm starting off knowing I need to be educated in terms of what are the areas that really are impactful to industries like yourself, so we can make sure we can be innovative in our legislation. Any other questions?
Congressman, just wondering, I love the comment that Mike Brown had mentioned about social inflation. And I think that if you look in our world right now, the social inflation is just going crazy, but it's driven a lot of times by, you talked about the curtain being pulled back from COVID, and I'm wondering, how do we get to that point where we have private industry working with, you know, public agencies, and where we're doing it based on common sense, not based on fear or based on regulation, and just having to protect ourselves and being polarized in so many directions. And I wonder what your take is on how we work better together, that collaborative mentality.
It's starting now. Something about our country and American people, when we start having common pain, we have a tendency to talk together. When things are kind of really going very, very well, it's very easy to get so much into our little silos and forget how blessed we really are. I mean, here we are finally, the guys, you know, 2 or 3 years after this COVID thing, we're realizing what inflation is all about. I don't know about you guys. I grew up, not I grew up, but I was back in the 70s. I remember inflation. For the first time, our kids are finally understanding what inflation is. It is the most onerous tax on the middle class and poor people that you'll ever see. It's subtle, it's devious, and it steals your dreams. And we're finally having that conversation. What we have to understand is that the country's been under attack for a long time. And it's about an ideology of socialism, of Marxism. It hates everything you stand for. I talk about faith, family, free market education. Marxists hate faith, family, free market education. So the only way we're going to overcome that is to finally start having these real conversations about making sure our kids are not taught. They're taught the free market, not about the Marxist ways of attacking the market. So we're on our way back. It's going to be a battle because we have to start recognizing that it starts with education. We have to start making sure we get our kids back so they go to college or they go to vocational school, they go to wherever they go to, they come out not with this onerous debt, with degrees that mean nothing and hating our country at the same time. We got to get away from that. That's been happening for too many decades. So what we're looking at is kind of a combination of decades of attack for our system that we finally awake to. And we're having some very good conversations with friends, we really are. That's crossed both sides of the aisle. I think once again we have common pain. We have a chance to talk about how we get out of this. And it's a healthy process, and I think we're going to learn from it. So yeah, we're on our way. Like I said before, I've never been more optimistic than I am right now in terms of where our country is going to go over the next few years.
I have a quick comment, if I might. Thank you, Congressman Owens, for taking some time and coming to Idaho. And I love your message. I just wanted to let the people from Utah know that you have a much broader reach than just the Wasatch Front. And I appreciate you coming to Idaho many times to support us up there and to bring your message. And I think it's a wonderful message, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Let me do this, guys. Let me leave you with a quick Raider story, okay? Now, I see some young faces in here, and I know some of you young guys don't realize the Raiders used to win football games all the time back in the day. Seriously, you turn on Monday Night Football, the Raiders are going to win that game. Just to kind of give you an idea of the culture of the Raiders in those days, because Al Davis believed in intimidation. I mean, he really did. I mean, for him, intimidation was more than half the game. So I'm going to tell you some of the names of the players that I played with, just so you get an idea of what intimidation looks like and names that we accepted and embraced. There was the Ghost, the Assassin, the Snake, Spike, Kick him in the head. We call it Kick him, short for Kick him in the head, which Ted Hendricks did one day, kick somebody in the head while he was laying on the ground. Oh my goodness. Mad Dog. Now, these guys, we accepted and we love these names. Now, mine was a little bit more on the passive side. They called me number 44. But I loved it. I had a nickname, which is kind of cool. But the thing about that team was it was a place where it was a second place with second chances. If you were too wild, too crazy, too rambunctious, too old for other NFL teams, you was just right for Al Davis Raiders. And it was a place once you got there, no matter where you came from, they just felt so proud to be part of a coach. You didn't want to let them down. So that year that we ended up winning Super Bowl 15, we were underdogs. We started as underdogs from the very beginning. We got halfway through the season. I think we were 3-5 underdogs. But we had a team meeting in which Gene Upshaw got up, and for the first time I heard the word Super Bowl. He said, guys, listen, we have a bad start. We just lost our quarterback. Jim Plunkett now has to step in for Dan Pansarino, just got hurt. But if we win every game 1 week at a time from this point on, we get the Super Bowl. And I tell you, it was exciting to hear that word because I played with the Jets for 7 years. And the Jets 40 years ago was doing exactly what the Jets are doing today, losing. Some things don't change. But I remember at that point, we started thinking one game at a time. I'll just say this also. There was one guy, a couple guys that didn't agree with this concept. And he said, matter of fact, he said, hey guys, the season's over. Let's just go ahead and let's do the best we can and just plan for next year. Well, that guy was traded to the Houston Oilers the following week because Al Davis did not put up with that kind of attitude. It's just win, baby. He really meant that. We went on to have my first winning season since high school, first playoff game since high school, sitting in the locker room and just thinking, I cannot believe I'm sitting here with all these guys that I respected for so many years, and I'm actually with them in silver and black. And the only thing we regret is we had no one else to play when the game was done with. We were having so much fun. But here's what I learned as I look back on that season. We had a lot of talents. Not a lot of young talents, but guys who had this remarkable desire to win. And I know they felt the way I did. I looked around my team and I said, I just didn't want to be the weak link. So I would study, I would work hard because I didn't want to look at the film and say, I'm the guy who let the team down. Everybody felt the same way. We had a guy named Ray Guy. I don't know if you guys remember Ray Guy. Ray was a punter. He would punt from our 10-yard line to their 10-yard line, maybe 2 or 3 times a game, but it changed everything. We had Jim Plunkett with a helmet. It always seemed like it was too small. And the ball would waver a little bit. But it was pretty when it got to Cliff Branch or one of the other guys. The point is, when the guys stepped on the field, they knew they had to leave everything. They had nothing left when they came off. And you have a team that's thinking that way, great things, miracles start to happen. And that was a miracle team, underdog team, the first wild card team to win in the history of the NFL because we just believed in each other. How do I relate that to what's happening today? And this kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. Our country has so much talented, good people, folks that truly want to leave a legacy for our kids. They understand what it's a sacrifice to work hard for themselves, to build success. And we're finally coming off the sideline and out of the stands and say, you know what? It's more to just my success. It's about this country. It's about our kids. What can I do to add value to this time in our nation where we're going to look back and realize this was such an important time for to do the things we're doing. This is one of those miraculous points like the Revolutionary War, like the Civil War. We're fighting a fight that has to be won. And we only have a couple years to do it because the other side is shameless. It's evil. It believes in destruction, divisiveness, hatred, all the things that we stand up against. That's what we're fighting. So let's make sure we're doing our part. You do it in your industry. Let us know how we can help for the free market to work in your industry. How can we take away not just short-term, but innovative, long-term regulations that we can start maybe just pulling back in appropriations, taking the funding away, whatever we might want to do there, but we just need to know have your help to get that done. Listen, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. We're going to get going. And again, and thanks, Bill. Thanks for the invite. Take care, guys.